Tonight, how close are Canada and the U.S. to a trade deal? What the U.S. ambassador is revealing about the talks.
The president has made it clear. I think every country is going to pay some level of tariffs.
And why some Americans are choosing to celebrate the 4th of July away from home.
I've always found Canadians like the nicest people ever.
How a desperate call for help in a BC wildfire ended in the arrest of a fugitive.
And that's the first for sure.
As hundreds flee flames in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. An Ontario family's terrifying story of shipwreck and survival in the Bahamas.
She turned to me and she said, "Dad, are we gonna die?"
Plus, a warning about how sharing your vacation snaps on social media could be making you a target. And the stunning video of a mysterious sphere that has everyone asking,
"What is it? It's going for a long time."
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. As Americans celebrated their Independence Day today, Donald Trump's envoy to Canada weighed in on the trade talks between both countries, saying this one will have to pay some level of tariff, but did not comment on whether a deal before the July 21st deadline will materialize. Trump, meanwhile, used the celebrations in the U.S. Capitol as a backdrop to celebrate his administration. Signing into law a massive mega bill supported by Republicans only that promises tax cuts but also cuts to social programs. And this flyover, a salute in the sky to the U.S. military strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. CTV's Adrian Gobriel starts us off.
Patriotic pageantry as thousands gather in the U.S. Capitol to celebrate America's 249th birthday. From the White House to the National Mall to right here at the Independence Day Parade, as you can see, celebrations in full swing with many taking to the streets to use their voice today in different ways to mark the day.
Trump is very much for America and patriotism, and everyone's out here to celebrate that.
Though some shared their love for country by gathering in protest against the current U.S. administration with a reading of the Declaration of Independence.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
I think it's important for us to go back to our founding documents, to our mission statement. Canada's our homie. I mean, other than burning the White House a couple hundred years ago, we've been good friends for a long time.
I'm deeply ashamed by my country right now.
Carolyn Smith is an architect from Ohio. She says President Donald Trump's tariffs on Canadian building materials resulted in her being laid off just 2 months ago.
The projects that I was working on are starting to feel the effects of that lack of access to materials.
Meanwhile, in Ottawa, U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra celebrated the day while stopping short of committing to a July 21st deadline to reach a trade deal with Canada.
The president has made it clear. I think every country is going to pay some level of tariffs, but the overall agreement, I think at the end of the day, is going to be good for Canada, and I think it's going to be good for America.
Back on the parade route, we met Nova Scotia native John Babcock, who left Canada for the U.S. 25 years ago.
It's been the best year I've ever had in business. I think with the changes Trump has made, we're going to see their most profitable year ever, even with some of the higher prices that we have to pay in tariffs. So I'm really positive about it.
On this July 4th, nearly everyone here taking in the day want the same thing, a better future for America, though many remain divided, perhaps now more than ever, on the path towards a truly united States. Adrian Gobriel, CTV News, Washington.
There are some Americans who chose to be in Canada on this 4th of July. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth caught up with them.
There's a holiday vibe sweeping across the U.S., yet Brenda Byers from Texas chose to celebrate Independence Day in Canada. Why does someone from Austin, Texas come to Nova Scotia to celebrate July 4th?
My son was born here 45 years ago, and I'm visiting my friends, and we love it. I love it here.
She's not alone. Mike and Barbara Rendos are visiting from Pennsylvania.
We feel a bond with Canada.
The Rendos are doing their part to strengthen the U.S.-Canada relationship and push aside any tensions between the neighboring countries.
My personal opinion, I hope that connection continues.
Big picture, American visitation to Canada is up so far this year compared to 2024, and tourism operators expect July and August to also be busy, with dozens of cruise ships bringing Americans to our country. This tour boat operator says U.S. visitors are coming in big numbers, and the feedback she's hearing is positive.
They're happy to be here in Canada, and they say how welcoming they feel.
The Philgate family is also feeling welcome as they create memories to last a lifetime, posting pictures of their Canadian RV trip on social media.
I was excited to come here. It's not my first trip to Canada. I've always found Canadians like the nicest people ever. And so far, everywhere we've gone, it's been like it's always been. Just really nice people, really welcoming people.
The Philgate foursome will return to Savannah, Georgia this weekend and look forward to their next vacation north of the border. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Overseas, Hamas says it has given a, quote, positive response to the latest proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza, but said more talks are needed. Smoke was seen rising from Gaza today after another explosion in the 21-month-old war. It's not clear if Hamas is accepting the 60-day ceasefire put forward by Donald Trump, who is expected to host Israel's prime minister at the White House next week. And Russia launched its largest missile and drone attack on Kyiv since the war in Ukraine began, killing one person and injuring 26. Officials say Russia fired 550 drones and missiles in the overnight barrage, hitting nearly every district in Ukraine's capital. The attack came hours after Russia's president spoke to Donald Trump, who said he was disappointed that Vladimir Putin is not ready to end the war. Canada's military has launched an investigation into a group on social media posting disturbing content. CTV's Rachel Aiello has been tracking the story from Ottawa. And Rachel, what can you tell us?
Omar, the Canadian Armed Forces is investigating members of a private Facebook group that included content the Army's commanding officer has called abhorrent. The group, known as the Blue Hackle Mafia, was first reported to the chain of command last December. Initially, military police launched an investigation into historic complaints about the private page, but the case was then transferred to the unit whose members were allegedly involved to conduct its own disciplinary investigation. That transfer was considered the best use of options available in this case, according to the Office of the Canadian Forces Provost Marshal. But after the commander of the Army said he was made aware of the page last week, military police reopened their investigation. In a statement, Lieutenant General Michael Wright said the content posted included racist, misogynistic, homophobic, and anti-Semitic comments and images. And any member who engages in inappropriate behavior should expect to face administrative and/or disciplinary consequences. Coming amid ongoing efforts within the military to rehabilitate its image and reform its culture after years of reported misconduct, the defense minister said this behavior is completely unacceptable, and he committed to working with the Canadian Armed Forces to create an inclusive and safe environment for all members. Military police said today that as the investigation is ongoing, no further information will be provided. Omar?
All right, Rachel Aiello in Ottawa, where a budget from the Liberal government isn't expected until the fall, though recent news snapshots are drawing attention to the cost of the campaign promises and how to pay for them. CTV's Michael Couture on the findings.
Canada will achieve NATO's 2% of GDP target this year.
That promise will cost the government $9 billion this fiscal year. But a new study by the C.D. Howe Institute says when you add in other election promises, Canada's deficit could balloon to $92 billion.
This is now surreal. I mean, we're sitting on a deficit that's already probably $70 billion without doing any of these. Surely they're not going to come, but they were in the election platform.
That platform also promised to offset spending by finding billions in operating efficiencies. A report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives believes that will mean cuts to the public service.
Now it's 24%, which would actually be the biggest cut to federal government operating expenditures ever for those departments.
Both think tanks say their reports are estimates based on available data in the absence of a federal budget, which opposition parties complain should have been presented before Parliament went on summer break. A statement from the finance minister's spokesperson said the government is making targeted investments to support the middle class, adding, "We remain committed to a responsible fiscal approach, one that strengthens Canada's position as the strongest, most resilient economy in the G7. Public service unions warn if the government cuts even more jobs, Canadians will feel it.
Just in the last fiscal year, about 10,000 federal public service jobs lost. And there's no plans to maintain the services that those workers have provided.
With thousands of those jobs being cut at CRA and Service Canada, unions warn Canadians will feel the effects when they apply for a passport and file their taxes. Omar?
All right, Mike, thank you. To a bizarre story out of BC's Fraser Valley now, where a man's desperate cries for help, stranded on a cliff surrounded by wildfire, took a turn.
We've never gone from the subject of a rescue to being walked away in handcuffs within 2 minutes of him arriving on the ground. That's the first for sure.
Police say 27-year-old Caden Blackwell was rescued, but then arrested a couple of minutes after. He has been wanted for months on multiple charges, including assaulting a peace officer with a weapon. A tight-knit Manitoba town decimated by wildfires is on the move for the second time this summer. Here's CTV's Alex Karpa on what prompted this latest evacuation.
This is Floki Boy.
Josiah Phillips has driven over 12 hours along with his wife Mary and their 2 dogs to flee the fires from their hometown of Lin Lake in northwestern Manitoba.
We had to drop everything, and you kind of very quickly realize what's important to bring and what you can just leave behind.
This is the second time in less than 2 months Phillips and his family were forced out of their home, and they're not alone. The situation is rapidly changing in Lin Lake, and the roughly 600 residents that live in the town are being asked to pack their bags and leave not even 2 weeks after returning home from their first evacuation notice. A new fire southwest of Lin Lake is threatening the main power transmission line for the town, and if it's destroyed, that could cause a loss of power to the community for at least a month.
It's not a question of if it'll burn the line, it's just a question of when.
Lin Lake Mayor Brandon Dulowich, who is still in the community, says the town is working hard to get everyone out tonight.
We've got flights arranged that will be landing directly in Brandon, Manitoba, and they will be going to a reception center and then straight into hotel rooms.
All we can do is wait and pray.
Phillips says he's eager to head home as soon as it's safe.
These fires keep happening, and we'll keep going back home when we can.
But it's the unknown of when that return date will be that is creating stress and anxiety for Phillips and so many other families. Alex Karpa, CTV News, Winnipeg.
Challenging conditions are also adding to the stress and anxiety in Saskatchewan tonight. CTV's Alison Bamford on the latest threat and what's prompting a possible lawsuit against the province.
Shifting winds and heavy smoke near the northern village of Beauval upgraded a voluntary evacuation order to a mandatory one.
We're praying that we don't get an east wind, because if it's an east wind, then it's coming directly to our village.
At least 350 residents have fled, with more expected to leave in the coming days. Those working at the general store were asked to stay as an essential service.
We are busy, especially from the firefighters. They need a lot of gasoline.
At least 2 cabins in the area have burned down since the community came under threat, adding to the long list of destruction sweeping across northern Saskatchewan. One business professor estimates $500 million in total damage has already been caused this wildfire season.
I would peg the impact here as being less severe than Jasper, definitely less severe than Fort McMurray, but by no means inconsequential.
This Saskatoon law firm is now exploring the potential for a class action lawsuit against the provincial government, alleging more could have been done to protect communities from the flames.
Mostly connected in with a lack of resources, lack of planning, but also examples of negligence, and that's where you get into potential for legal action.
The Saskatchewan government hasn't been served with any legal claims and would not comment further on what officials called a hypothetical court matter. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Coming up.
She turned to me and she said, "Dad, are we gonna die?"
How a dreamy experience sailing the Caribbean turned into a nightmare. A Canadian family survived what is likely the most frightening experience of their lives. CTV's John Woodward on how the voyage of a lifetime turned into a disaster at sea.
This video from the U.S. Coast Guard shows a dream voyage's tragic end, run aground on a reef in the Bahamas. The vessel Mischief was the pride and joy of Krista Shaw and Tony Bryant, who spent years working in Toronto, saving up to set sail for a life at sea they documented on Instagram.
We were part of the downtown Toronto rat race for 9 years.
Got on the move at 6:30
By 2023, they were working remotely from the sailboat deck and showing their 8-year-old daughter Adelaide the world.
Every place we'd go to, there'd be something different. Like there's dolphins jumping off the bow. Like we'd learn about dolphins.
Then on Sunday, some 5,000 nautical miles from where they began, it was the weather making mischief. Their vessel was blown off course into a reef in the Bahamas. Waves battered the vessel. It took on water through a hull breach. They frantically put Adelaide in the life raft.
It's something that will stick with me for the rest of my life. But she turned to me and she said, "Dad, are we going to die?" I said, "Not tonight, kiddo. We ain't dying tonight."
A passing ship heard their mayday calls via flashlights and flares and called the U.S. Coast Guard, which launched a helicopter.
Shockingly, the most amazing noise I've ever heard hearing a helicopter approaching.
By 2:30 in the morning, the family was hoisted into the chopper.
I'm sure it was very scary for her because the noise and the whipping, the spray of the whipping water. And I think at that point for me, it was the moment where I was like, okay, we're going to be okay.
They're alive and grateful, though almost everything they owned is in the ocean.
We need to get some identification so we can fly, or anything so we can fly back to Canada.
Heartbreaking for them to see the sailboat Mischief, their home for almost 3 years, wrecked on the reef.
The next step for this family, replacing lost passports and getting back to Canada. They've started a GoFundMe page to help with expenses in the Bahamas and on the journey home, and they're hoping that Canada's Global Affairs staff will come through. John Woodward, CTV News.
An update to a W5 investigation we told you about recently into an alleged sexual assault ring. The suspect is now facing new charges.
I do believe that there would be more victims that may not necessarily know that they were victims of Brian Hayward.
Brian Hayward appeared in a courtroom in Hamilton, Ontario today, charged with multiple new counts of aggravated assault and other offenses. The W5 investigation unveiled a network of thousands of men secretly drugging and raping their wives and partners and then posting the images online. Hayward will remain in custody until his next court appearance in a week. Still ahead, the warning about sharing your summer holiday photos on social media. Before jumping to post your summer vacation pictures, an insurance company is warning you to think twice. Here's CTV's Vanessa Wright.
When social media influencer Hannah Logan took a trip to Greece last month, she shared a photo with her followers on Instagram showing them the breathtaking beach views, tagging its location. But then something unsettling happened.
A few hours later, when we go to leave and I open my phone and I open Instagram, I have a message from a random guy on the island who's saying, "Oh, hey, I'm here too."
She says nothing escalated, but admits the situation was an eye-opener.
For someone who works in this industry and knows better, that was definitely a reminder. Like, this is why you do not post in real time.
But she isn't the only one. A new poll found nearly 32% of Canadian social media users post about their vacation plans, with 9% posting their plans before a trip, 28% post during their trip, and 15% of people say sharing on social media is more of a priority than keeping their home safe from a break-in.
Quite an alarming statistic because 15% of people actually prioritize putting their pictures for people to know that they're on vacation is more important for them than having their home safe, which it should be the complete, it should be 0%.
Security expert Brian McLennan says there are simple things homeowners can do to protect themselves and their property, like have a house sitter. But if that's not possible,
get an alarm system, get cameras if you can. The Ring doorbells or the Google Nests are really good. to catch at least something, and if nothing else, just the lights themselves. Like I said, you can put them on different timers, so they flick on at different times.
For those like Logan, where sharing her daily life and travel is a part of her job, she says she'll take precautions moving forward.
I think it's more about, planning and posting smartly. Like, share your vacation and share where you are. Just don't share at exact real time.
Vanessa Wright, CTV News.
Three-time Stanley Cup winner Jonathan Taves is back home and officially a member of the Winnipeg Jets.
It really all started by being a young kid going to the Winnipeg Arena and watching games.
The 37-year-old was born in Winnipeg, but spent his entire professional career in Chicago, captaining the Blackhawks to 3 championships. The Jets signed Taves to a one-year deal worth $2 million US. The center hasn't played NHL hockey since 2023 as he dealt with symptoms of long COVID and chronic immune response syndrome. Still ahead, why this strange sight is sparking debate. A rare and mysterious phenomenon that appears during thunderstorms caught the eye of an Alberta couple. CTV's John Vanavalley-Rao sheds light on the striking sight.
While thunderstorms can produce all sorts of spectacular displays, what this Alberta couple saw this week was truly next level.
What is it?
Capturing this bizarre and brilliant ball of light moving across the horizon.
It's like a fireball, but not really. It's the wrong color.
They say the spectacle lasted about a minute and began with a bolt of lightning that struck just under a kilometer from their home. Ed Party says it spawned the display.
It was probably anywhere from 1 meter to 2 meters in diameter, so it was fairly large. And then, I don't know, about 20 feet above the ground.
The couple were amazed and scrambled to film it with a phone.
I was like, what is this? I've never seen this before. No, it was pretty neat.
A neat sight that had Ed immediately wondering if it was the mysterious thing he'd read about as a kid called ball lightning.
After we shut the video off and it disappeared, I'm like, oh, so that's what that looks like.
For more than a century, there have been reported sightings of rare and strange floating energy balls that are said to have even gone into people's homes. Those several supposed videos of ball lightning have been debunked as fakes.
We've got this really bright light out here.
We asked longtime storm chaser George Karunas for his opinion.
If this is indeed ball lightning, this is one of the best ball lightning videos I've ever seen.
But he wonders if what we're seeing is the result of lightning hitting a power line and an arc of electricity traveling along it.
This exhibits all the characteristics of a persistent, slow-moving, arcing power line.
Ed and Melinda doubt that.
Definitely not.
No, it's a long ways away from a power line.
And they say no matter what this is, it was cool to see. John Vanavalley-Rao, CTV News, Toronto.
And that's a snapshot of this Friday. Morella Fernandez is here over the weekend. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching and good night.